In 2019, the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein sent shockwaves across the world. A billionaire financier with private jets, private islands, and connections to some of the most powerful people on the planet had been accused of running a large-scale sex trafficking operation involving underage girls. But the real shock didn't come from the arrest itself. It came from what investigators discovered afterward, when authorities seized Epstein's private properties, computers, contact lists, flight logs, and documents. They uncovered a trove of information that later became known as the Epstein Files, a collection of records that revealed far more than just alleged crimes. They showed patterns, relationships, and unanswered questions about power, privilege, and accountability in America. Jeffrey Epstein was presented to the world as a financial genius, a self-made billionaire. Yet no one could clearly explain how he earned his wealth. He had no public hedge fund, no clear client list, and no traditional financial footprint. Still, he lived like royalty, multiple mansions across New York, Florida, New Mexico, and Paris, a private island in the US Virgin Islands, and a private jet that flew constantly across the globe. The key to his influence wasn't just money, it was access. Presidents, princes, academics, media figures, and billionaires all passed through his homes. Photographs captured him smiling alongside those whose decisions shaped nations. To the public, Epstein seemed untouchable, surrounded by a shield of power. That shield became most obvious during his first major legal case in 2005. Multiple underage girls came forward in Florida, accusing him of sexual abuse. Investigators documented detailed accounts and collected evidence pointing toward a systematic operation. Yet instead of facing serious federal charges, Epstein received an extraordinarily lenient plea deal. He served just 13 months in a county jail and was allowed to leave for work during the day. Federal charges were dropped entirely. Victims later revealed they were never informed of the deal, a direct violation of federal law. The decision remains one of the most controversial plea bargains in US history, raising immediate questions about influence, negotiation, and who truly benefited from the system. Following Epstein's arrest in 2019, public attention turned to the so-called Epstein Files. Flight logs documented repeated trips with high-profile figures. Contact lists included hundreds of names spanning politics, business, academia, and entertainment. Court documents, once sealed, were slowly unredacted, revealing settlements, allegations, and the scope of Epstein's operations. It's important to note, appearing in the files does not automatically indicate guilt. However, these records demonstrated one thing very clearly: access and proximity mattered, and silence often followed. In the final weeks before his death, Epstein was held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. Officially on suicide watch, he was meant to be monitored constantly. Yet on August 10, 2019, he was found dead in his cell. The official ruling: suicide by hanging. But the circumstances surrounding his death immediately raised questions. Broken cameras, unmonitored hours, and reports of procedural lapses fueled widespread skepticism. Many of the questions about how such a high-profile prisoner could be left alone remain unresolved. After Epstein's death, the public hoped for clarity, accountability, and answers. Instead, the case seemed to contract inward. Associates avoided consequences, investigations slowed, and many documents remained sealed or heavily redacted. Yet the Epstein files themselves did not disappear. They remain as a record of power-bending justice, of privilege shielding individuals, and of institutions that failed the most vulnerable while protecting the well-connected. To understand the scandal fully, one must also consider Epstein's network. His connections spanned continents and decades. He cultivated relationships with academics, securing funding for research programs and establishing credibility in elite circles. He associated with politicians from multiple parties and interacted with royalty from around the world. The files also showed repeated patterns of travel and secrecy. Private jets, Isolated islands and luxury properties facilitated encounters that evaded scrutiny. Flight logs documented trips with high-profile individuals, some of whom claimed ignorance, while others declined to comment. The files themselves raised questions without providing definitive answers for everyone involved. What these records illustrate is a broader societal question: how power protects itself, and what happens when accountability is optional. Epstein's story was never just about one man. It was about the systems around him, legal, social, and institutional, that allowed him to operate for decades without serious consequences. Even today, legal proceedings continue against Epstein's associates. Lawsuits and investigations are ongoing, but the public interest remains high, fueled by curiosity, outrage, and disbelief. How could a man with such clear allegations evade justice for so long? How did his network protect him? And why did so many critical questions remain unanswered after his death? The Epstein Files serve as both evidence and warning. They remind us that influence can shield individuals, that secrecy can hide wrongdoing, and that wealth can create immunity in ways that ordinary citizens cannot comprehend. Ultimately, the Epstein scandal is more than a criminal case. It's a reflection of society's vulnerabilities, the ways power can corrupt, silence can protect, and justice can falter. It is a cautionary tale of privilege, oversight, and the consequences of failing to hold the powerful accountable. While some answers may never come, the files remain a map of a network, a trail of documents, and a stark illustration of the intersection of wealth, influence, and secrecy. And in the end, the Epstein Files do not provide closure. Instead, they force us to ask one persistent question: if someone this well-connected could escape accountability for so long, how many others have done the same? And if the system fails once, how do we ensure it doesn't fail again?